And we are back for the 322nd episode of
The Horror Guys. Yay!
That is a whole lot of movies.
That is a lot of movies.
But this week,
good thing
we've
we
only
didn't
got
have to watch them all in 1 week.
Yeah.
We spread them out.
I wonder
it's
how
okay.
many hours that is.
We spread them out. It's okay. Yeah.
But this week, we're only going to talk about 5 of them.
Okay.
5 movies and a couple of shorts.
4 shorts, actually. Yeah.
About 3 shorts.
3 shorts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway. You get any awards
4.
this week?
I deserve an Oscar.
You do.
Yeah.
An Academy Award.
At least a book about an Oscar.
Or at least a nomination for a book about an Oscar.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
In about 11 days from this recording, the 2025 Oscars are going to be held. And some horror movies have been involved in the Oscars.
There are 3 horror movies nominated.
Yeah, we're waiting to see if they're going to win this year.
Alien Romulus, The Substance, and Nosferatu.
And some guy put together a book about all the horror movies that have been either nominated or won Oscars. Wouldn't that be a neat book to have?
That would be.
Yeah.
Hey, look at that. It's available at horrormonthly.com. It's the Horror Guy's Guide to the Academy Awards of Horror.
Nice.
Nice, yes. And it's got, I don't have the number in front of me, like 40 or between 40 and 50 movies that have won Academy Awards.
Or
horror movies.
Or been nominated, or both. Sometimes they get a lot more nominations than they win.
Well, there's only 3 of them here that didn't win. So these are all winners of something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not necessarily Best Picture. There's things like Best Makeup, a lot of Best Makeup, Best Visual Effects, Best Music, Sound, Best Actress, Best Actor.
Best caterer.
No, none of that.
They should really go wild on the categories.
But the audience doesn't get into the
have like a
catering.
6-hour show.
I would see a lot more movies if they were catered.
Really dig deep into the best lighting technician, best guy who.
I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't a Best Lighting somewhere.
Best person who brings the coffee. Well, their lighting is kind of part of the effects and stuff. Yeah, that is involved. But they could get really silly with it.
Gaffers and Best Boys. Best Boy.
Best boy. There you go.
All right. Yeah. So the Horror Guy's Guide to the Academy Awards of Horror. It is a full-length book, and you can go over to horrormonthly.com, where it's right there on the homepage, and you can click on a link to pick it up at Amazon or any place that sells books.
Mm-hmm.
This week, though, we've watched some new movies and some old movies.
The Gorge.
And some good movies and some crap movies. We are all over the place.
The brand new Apple TV, The Gorge.
The Gorge, yes.
Yeah. And we're going to go fishing for The Damned. And then pop back to last year with Grafted. And then a classic from 1988, Slugs.
Classic, eh?
And The Night Strangler from 1973.
All right. Well, it's a mix.
It's an eclectic mix.
Of all the mixes of movies, this is the one of them.
Yeah, this is one. Yeah.
All right. Well, where are we going to start?
Oh, we should start with 2025's The Gorge.
The Gorge?
Yeah.
I thought it was Jorge.
It's about a guy named George.
The Gorge. It's a big hole in
Gorge.
the ground.
Yeah, it is.
Not to be confused with the movie Hole in the Ground.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is not this. Yeah. This was directed by Scott Derrickson, written by Zach Dean. It stars Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy, mostly just them, and Sigourney Weaver is thrown into the mix.
She fights aliens, right?
Well, this makes me think it's tied in the same universe with Cabin in the Woods.
The ending of Cabin in the Woods, it's, they're similar characters.
Yeah, yeah. The runtime is a little long, 2 hours and 7 minutes. They cram a lot into it. And there's a trailer in the show notes. Yeah. Apple TV's been advertising this a lot. I keep seeing ads for it.
And the best part of this is the trailers don't give it all away.
Yeah, they did a trailer right on this.
Actually, the trailer made it look a lot more boring than it really was.
It's really good, and there's a lot more to it than the trailer lets on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what happens?
Well, this was better than we expected, and the
We
preview.
just said all that.
Oh yeah, we did that. We did the right. Yeah.
What happens?
It wasn't a perfect movie, but we enjoyed it. Okay, I'm reading the spoilery synopsis. Yeah. Okay. We open on Drasa, who is sleeping in a cave. She marks another day off her calendar as she points her sniper rifle out toward a far distant airport. One shot, and her victim falls down dead. And credits roll.
She's an assassin
She's
sniper.
a sniper. Yeah. Well, we cut to Levi, getting up and driving to the beach as the sun rises. He's told to report to a military base, where he meets Bartholomew, who's a high-level spy. That's Sigourney Weaver. I'm assuming that's a code name. Maybe it's her last name.
We don't know. With spies, it's probably all
But
made
we
up.
don't know, yeah. She talks about his history as a Marine Corps sniper. He's got quite a list of kills, and she has got a job for him. Well, meanwhile, in Lithuania, Drasa and her father visit a graveyard. They talk about her latest kill, an arms dealer who totally had it coming. Well, the old man is dying, and she's going away for at least a year, so they say their goodbyes. Back to Levi, parachuting down in a no-fly zone, and they even knocked him out for the beginning of the flight.
Yeah, he doesn't have any idea what country or even what continent or where he is.
They really want to make sure that he doesn't know where he is or where he's going, yeah. Well, he has to walk quite a few miles to his isolated destination, which is an extremely deep gorge. And there's a tower on the one side and a tower on the other side. And he meets J.D., a soldier, who briefs Levi. He's the previous guy who's been there for a year. Neither of them have any idea what country this is. J.D. hasn't seen a single person in the past year except the distant, other person in the tower through the telescope. Levi is going to be his replacement. So he gets the tour of the observation tower. It's all self-contained and solar-powered and got water and food and everything for a year. And Levi isn't allowed to make contact with the other tower. There's a lot of technology and air raid sirens, and there's a fence along the perimeter with explosives.
My job here is to keep people from going into the gorge, right?
No, it's to keep what's in the gorge from getting out.
Oh, my.
And he says, what? What's in the gorge?
It's a gateway to hell.
That's what this guy thinks. Well, and when they're talking, they're sitting on the patio of the tower. He takes a grenade and casually throws it off into the gorge.
And you hear
the
boom.
Roaring. And you hear all kinds of howls and screams and everything. He's like, what? Okay, that does sound like demons. Yeah. Well, the Russians and the Americans have been working together on this for decades, without even their own leaders, most of them, knowing about this place. And it's even cloaked electronically from satellites, so there's no aerial view even.
No Google Earth. They mentioned that specifically, so don't go look.
Yeah. And the guy he's replacing calls them the Hollow Men, is what they're referred to as, these things, and they are extremely lethal. Well, J.D., he's on his own.
Yeah.
Levi is on his own. J.D. takes off, and Levi takes over, and Drasa takes over on the other tower, on the other side.
And we should probably stop there.
And we should stop there, because stuff happens.
Yeah. This is all given away right there in the trailer, so this is not news if you've seen the trailer.
And and obviously they're looking at each other. You can see that at the trailer. They're checking each other out in telescopes. And so they're making a little bit of contact. But then, stuff happens.
There's a lot more to this than the trailer would you have you believe.
Yeah, it was cool.
Okay.
And like we said, it's not a perfect movie, but it's the physics sometimes, and I mentioned in my commentary, boy, they get knocked around and shot and beat and dragged, and
at one point she gets her leg caught in a rope and dragged through the woods by a horse for like miles, and then she's just perfectly fine afterwards.
They're fine, yeah, and their guns.
He falls off the mountain like a mile deep, and he's fine.
And their guns have an awful lot of bullets,
unlimited ammo.
Yeah, there's some flying
until it's time to not have unlimited ammo,
and they have some flying drones that they have all kinds of armament, lots of automated stuff. Okay, you've got a flying drone, which has to be light enough to fly. And it's up in the air, and it shoots this stream of, like, machine gun. Okay, that should just about empty it. No, these drones keep firing these bursts of bullets like that.
Bullets are heavy.
There's no way that these drones could be holding that many bullets. The weight wouldn't work. So there's issues like that you have to ignore.
Yeah.
But overall, it's an entertaining movie.
Yeah. I thought the plant-based zombie things were very much like the creatures in The Last of Us.
Kinda, yeah.
We do get to see the monsters, and there are a lot of them.
Yeah, we get to see the creatures.
The CGI overall is pretty good, although sometimes they look like they were in a video game.
Yeah, sometimes, straight out of it.
Oh, the thing with the Jeep at the end.
Oh, with a winch.
Oh, come on.
Jeeps are tough, but boy, that's pushing it.
Well, at least it never gets boring.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah,
For the length of it, I was never bored.
No,
Yeah.
it's very long, but
Even the setup was interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been a miniseries, I suppose.
That's what I thought it when I first heard about it. I thought it was a series.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but no, just a movie.
Overall, yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, thumbs up. You should check it out.
As a contender with our next movie for our favorite of the week, I bet.
Yeah.
What do you think?
The Damned, 2025.
Which is your favorite?
I would go with The Damned overall. Because of those unbelievable factors that, the violations of the laws of physics too much in the Gorge versus The Damned, which I'm not going to say is realistic, but
If I were going to watch one again,
more so.
I'd probably go with The Damned.
Me
Just
too.
because I feel like I missed some stuff because of the accents.
And I want to see, knowing what I know now, I want to see it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
2025's The Damned, directed by Thorder Paulson. Written by Jamie Hannigan and Thorder Paulson. Thorder Paulson.
You might get the
Could say that a
impression
couple
that
of times.
this is international production.
Stars Odessa Young, Joe Cole, and Siobhan Finneran. It's Irish. Very Irish.
Mm-hmm.
Hour and 25 minutes. Trailer in the show notes.
Long ago and far away.
Okay, spoiler free, what happens?
This was literally a chilling movie to watch. It's very cold, very desolate. The location and the vibe of it are perfect, actually. It's dead of winter, and they're really isolated. They're trapped. It was solidly good throughout, and then the ending is questionable.
I have not read anybody else's review of this one,
Yeah.
but I can't imagine that the ending is not controversial.
Yeah, I think it would be. And the more we thought about it and discussed it, the more we liked it, and we both give it a thumbs up.
We were both really liking it, and then the ending came up, and what the
And we're
hell
like,
was
that's
that?
it? What? And then we thought about it more. It's like, oh.
The more we thought about it, the better it got.
Oh,
but
yeah.
the ending is going to be one of those ones you're going to have to think about.
I think you might love it or hate it at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we see various shots of the very cold land as the credits roll. Eventually, we cut to Ava walking through the snow. Magnus said it was a place of opportunity if you can endure the cold and long nights. Now, the small fishing village is starving, and it's not looking good. So this is some isolated...
It's more of an outpost than a village. It's very small. It's
is
just a few buildings.
A dozen people out in a few
and
buildings.
handful of buildings. And
Looks like Norway or somewhere like that. These are Irish people, but I suspect they're not close to home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this is like in the 1800s.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So there's
they've got guns and stuff, but it's no technology.
Uh-huh.
Well, Ragnar is the leader of the community, and Ava points out he's the fishing boss. And Ava points out that there have been bad years before, but men always ended up dying in those years. The roads are all buried, so no one's going anywhere until spring. After dinner, Helga tells them a story about two brothers who murdered each other. Helga's fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ava and Magnus owned the fishing station, and when he died, she was left in charge. She's this tiny little woman with these giant big fishermen, and they all listen. Surprisingly, they all listen to her really well.
Yeah, without giving her grief. Yeah.
She doesn't have anywhere else to go, neither do most of the fishermen.
I think that they
It's
recognize...
a family kind of thing.
Yeah, plus they recognize that they've got to run a tight ship to all survive.
Yeah.
They've all got to be on the same page, and there's not strife. There's minor conflicts, but they all get along, and yeah, everything's sort of flowing smooth until...
In the morning, Ava and Helga watch the men take their boats out to the beach. Having a hard time catching anything recently.
That's the downside. They're getting hungry.
They all see a big sailing ship out on the horizon, but it's stuck on the rocks and it's sinking pretty fast. Unfortunately, it's too far away for the fishermen to get there in time to help. But even if they did save some, they don't have the food to spare for more mouths. This is the same place they lost Magnus last year. It's Ava's call as to whether or not to try to save the men, and she says, why don't y'all all go home and take the day off?
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to try. It's
Yeah.
just, even if we saved them, it would be bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, later on, maybe the next day or so, Ava finds a barrel of food on the beach that probably came from the wrecked ship. They take a boat to the crash site to search for more barrels. They find living survivors, too many for their boat, and they back off. Some of the men jump on the water and try to crawl in the boats, and there's sort of a scuffle and a big fight. They end up fighting off some of the men, and Ragnar is killed in the fight.
Yeah, and one of the fishermen actually bashes one of the survivors in the head to save themselves. They've got to make a choice: save the boat and themselves, or save these guys.
Yeah.
And he
The guy in the credits is called Axed Fisherman. He gets an axe in the face.
And so this guy deals with the guilt of that throughout. Guilt is a big factor for these people now, for not saving these people. And this guy actually killed one. So yeah.
So are they cursed or what?
Well, they are damned.
The following morning, bodies start washing up on shore. Even the fishermen puke when Daniel cuts one of the dead open, and eels pour out.
Ew.
Yeah, that's a kind of a gross scene.
Yeah.
He's alive. He's clearly not alive.
No, he's not. No.
Okay, so Helga is superstitious and demands that the men wrap the coffins in rope and do some other rituals to keep the dead from coming back.
And of course they brush her off and say, superstitious nonsense, we don't need to do that.
As night falls, Ava gets a scare outside in the dark and tells Daniel, the new helmsman, what she saw. He says maybe it's time to get the rifle out.
Mm-hmm.
They have a rifle. He shows her how to use it, and the two start to get close.
Yep.
Helga puts up a talisman above the door. The drower needs to see it to stay away. It's some sort of little amulet kind of thing. She describes a creature that's essentially a zombie powered by hate. Helga tells Ava all about the creature, who visits her dreams. Helga says it's too strong, and soon it'll get in. It won't stop until it takes all of us. The only way to stop a drower is fire. Burn it.
So, we've got the Harbinger living right with you. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah. And bad things start happening.
Yeah, bad things get worse. And, you're left to wonder, what's going on? There's a creature after him.
There's clearly something going on.
Something's going on, yeah.
Well, the location here is amazing. Cold, creepy, and just begging for a haunting. Who would even try to build a village there? This place is bleak.
Well, I think it's a good fishing spot. Normally.
Apparently it's not.
Well, normally.
It looked like a good place at the time.
Or has been, yeah.
They never mention in the movie what year it takes place, but the trivia on the IMDb says it's 1871.
Apparently it is mentioned somewhere there. And they mention it being after the solstice, so we know it's in December, late December, early January. Apparently the year's mentioned there somewhere.
Yeah. All right, well, my commentary is broken into two parts here.
Uh-huh.
When the movie was done, I typed in this part. The ending killed it for me.
Mm-hmm.
The explanation didn't match what we saw earlier. Oh, I really can't read
You
this,
can't
can
spoil, though. Don't spoil. Yeah, you can't read that.
All right. Well, all right.
Okay, we thought about it one way first, but then afterward we realized...
Obviously, the movie ends one way until you start thinking about it, and then there's more to it.
Yeah, I think so.
I did like it a lot, but I'm sure many will hate the ending.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the ending is maybe a little too vague.
But if you hate the ending, read what we thought of the ending and see if you'll like the ending better.
But don't read our full review until after you've seen it.
But not ahead of time, right?
Yeah. All right, what's next?
What is next?
2024 is Grafted.
Okay.
Directed by Sasha Rainbow. Written by Lee Murray, Sasha Rainbow, and Mia Maramara. Maramara, there's a name for you.
Sasha Rainbow is such an awesome name.
Stars Eden Hart, Jess Hong, and Jared Turner. Hour and 36 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. All right, spoiler free.
You should tell them spoiler free.
It's an interesting idea, and it's well made in every way. There are some unbelievable points that we had a hard time getting past, but it's fun overall, and we give it a moderate thumbs up.
Yeah, I liked the premise. Just
the execution has some issues mostly with the casting and well, I don't know. We'll see. Go ahead.
Yeah. Wei, a little girl in China, talks about how corpse flowers work. They make themselves smelly to attract flies. And she then feeds a mouse to a snake and then talks to her father about fixing his face. He's got a large birthmark on his face, and so does his daughter. He works in his lab to make skin grafts, and this is like a home lab thing. He's just doing this on his own. He's a home scientist. Well, he tries it on his own face, and it does work a little too well. It grows right over his mouth and nose, sealing them shut, and it just keeps growing and sealing his face. Well, he tries cutting his face open with a scalpel, and it grows right back. And he eventually suffocates as Wei takes over, frantically slashing at him. Credits roll.
Well, that was something.
Yeah. So she's a grown-up orphan now, apparently. Yeah. Her family considers her a monster because of her face.
She has a birthmark on her neck and a chin.
Bad.
It's not that bad.
But she wears a scarf to hide it most of the time, keep it covered up. Well, she packs up and goes to university in New Zealand. She wants to be a scientist like her father. She goes to stay with her very chatty Aunt Ling and cousin Angela in Auckland. And Angela is embraced being a New Zealander.
She's a New Zealander, yeah.
She has turned her back on Chinese and all things Chinese.
The aunt talks to Wei in Chinese, and
here
Angela's
comes Wei.
Like, speak so I can understand you.
Yeah, she's not having it. Yeah, she's a teenager, and she's decided she's New Zealander. Well, on the first day of school, Wei talks to John, a homeless man who looks terribly burned. And she soon becomes a lab assistant for her Professor Paul. At night, Angela has her friends Eve and Jasmine over, and they kind of laugh at Wei's weird Chinese ways and get grossed out with her collection of medical photos. We see that Paul's funding is about to be canceled, and he's only got 2 weeks to resubmit something.
Well, we know where this is going.
Yeah. Needs a new project, and Wei has one. Well, Wei watches Angela's friends and pretends to emulate them with very kind of poor effects. Well, she invites them to an authentic Chinese restaurant, and Wei orders chicken feet, which is surprisingly unpopular with the other girls, and she blames their treatment of her on her birthmark, which isn't really that bad. Paul invites Wei to work on her father's research in her lab, and so they get right on it. And he starts reporting his work on skin grafting between makeout sessions with Eve. So he's having an affair with one of his students, Angela's friend Eve. Jasmine comes in, also gets a job as a second lab assistant. Well, Wei remembers about the corpse flower, and that had some part in his work, so she breaks into a museum and takes a sample of the flower to use in her work. And she tries it on her leg, and it does work, without getting carried away. Well, Paul looks at Wei's healed-up leg, and Eve takes a photo of them in a compromising position, because he's kneeling in front of her, and she's kind of got her legs spread. It is a bad photo. But it's not, not what anybody would think, but she's going to blackmail Paul with it. Paul makes copies of Wei's father's notebook, while Eve drops Wei off in the middle of nowhere. These friends and Angela just aren't treating her right. And they have ransacked her little shrine to her father, and the girls argue, and this ends with Angela being killed. Well, guess what happens? She cuts off Angela's face and, using her special secret formula, grafts it over her own face. And then she's Angela. Hilarity ensues from there.
Yeah, and that's basically where this movie goes.
And other things happen from there, yeah.
Okay, well, that was weird. Mm-hmm. I don't think skin grafting works at all like that.
Well, that's the trouble. It is just the skin of the face, but, it's the underlying bone structure and muscles, too.
Yeah.
Plus impersonating
Here
another
in the movie,
person.
Nobody can tell when she's wearing somebody else's face. She's wearing more than one person's face.
For the sake of the movie, you just overlook that and accept that when she's wearing another face, she's fooling everybody.
Well, I'm going to spoil a little bit here.
Yeah.
At one point, she ends up wearing Eve's face.
Yeah.
And Wei is a short little Chinese girl with darker skin.
Uh-huh.
And Angela is this tall blonde girl with very white skin.
And thinner.
And she's wearing... And she's suddenly, nobody can tell the difference.
Yeah, but Wei puts her face on, and then she becomes Eve.
You
completely.
Are more than just your face.
She did have to dye her hair. At least she dyed her hair because she was because Eve is blonde and Wei is brunette.
Yeah, it's just not. It's give it up. Don't even try to believe this. This is just
you have to overlook that.
Yeah.
But it's well made.
Yeah, it's fun otherwise.
Yeah, it's
suspension of disbelief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, now for our stinker of the week.
Mm-hmm. I was led to believe this was a good movie.
I'd love to know what you saw that thought that.
It was a list of good movies, like, movies from the 80s that are really good and nobody talks about enough, and this was one that was mentioned. And I was led to believe it was good. It's not.
It's not. 1988's Slugs, directed by Juan Pecure Simon, written by Ron Gantman, Sean Hudson, and Jose Antonio Escriba, stars Michael Garfield Levine, Kim Terry, and Philip McHale. Hour and 29 minutes. The poster's something.
Yeah.
They slime, they ooze, they kill.
The poster is very cool, the artwork on that.
Well, this was a pretty low-end creature feature. It's got some good moments of kills and mayhem. Mostly it suffers from really bad dialogue, overbearing music, weak acting, and choppy editing. It was acceptable, but it was not great.
No. Good practical effects here and there with gore and,
The slugs themselves are pretty well done, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they're real slugs in close-up, or maybe they're...
I'm sure they use real little creatures a lot. Yeah. Well, a young couple is out in the rowboat fishing. She's bored and wants to go swimming, but then something pulls him in and eats him. And credits roll.
Yeah, we never hear back from the girl again who didn't die.
Yeah.
Why did the people later on not know about this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he just...
Because it's just a teaser.
He just fell in the water and something ate him. These things happen. I guess, just a Tuesday. Well, an old man and his dog sit next to an old house and get drunk. The old man, not the dog. The man's been living...
He offers some to the dog.
Oh, yeah. The man's been living there, but he's not much of a housekeeper, and slugs are everywhere. We cut to Mike and Kim Brady out with Maureen and her boring husband David. They pass Don and his wife Maria on the way out.
So many characters right away.
Yeah. Don is in charge of the city sewers. Mike and Kim go home and have a happy time, and we see they have a slug on their window, watching you. In the morning, Mike, the health inspector, talks to the sheriff about evicting the old drunk we saw earlier. Well, they do find the man's head. Something's been eating him. Mike finds a bunch of little trails leading away, like slime trails leading to the basement. But there's nothing down there but trash. Mike and Don check out a reported clogged sewer. Don finds something alive in the pipes. At school, the kids talk about Kim's classes. She's a teacher there. They are annoying, the children. An old woman nags her husband.
But it's important to point out here that the kids are going to have a big Halloween party out in the woods next week.
Right.
This is important because Halloween party and a horror movie.
Yep. Well, an old woman nags her husband about the snail eggs on all her plants. He ends up getting bitten by a slug that was hiding in his glove. He screams for help, but his wife is inside vacuuming with loud music. There's suddenly slugs everywhere, and he freaks out and cuts his own hand off before the entire greenhouse explodes in fire.
That was excessive.
That escalated really quickly. I mean, there's like one slug in the glove, and you go to an exploding greenhouse. Well, Kim and Mike hear about the old couple's death, and Mike notices slime trails all through Kim's garden. There's slime trails everywhere. And then he sees the slug, and one of them bites him. That's not how that's supposed to work. They're not carnivorous, normally. He puts one in a jar to have it tested by the science teacher at Kim's school.
Boy, the science teacher. Mm-hmm. You know, I went to a nicely funded high school, and our lab was nothing like that.
This is something.
This guy works like for NASA, only it's really just a high school.
And he's like a scientific genius, too.
Yeah, very well equipped. He doesn't seem to have any students either. He just sits in the lab and works all day at high school.
Well, we should stop there. There's lots of slugs, and they're starting to attack the townspeople.
It's a killer slug movie, people.
And so they have to form a plan to fight the slugs, and stuff happens.
Well, some of the dialogue here is truly awful, and a lot of it seems to have been dubbed in post, so there's really no excuse. It was shot in both the USA and Spain. Now, supposedly the Spanish people spoke Spanish and the English people spoke English, and they didn't really mix very much.
And this could explain the choppy editing, too.
It might.
Yeah.
But it seemed like the American people were dubbed just as badly as everybody else.
Yeah.
The music is overblown and way too active for such a slow-paced film. I noticed in the beginning credits it mentioned the so-and-so Philharmonic did the music for this, and it's like they were trying to do 4th of July music for a horror movie.
They did it loudly.
Yeah. Well, there's no way that the final plan would kill all the slugs at all. Other than the death of one random teen, the repeated mentions of the big Halloween party goes nowhere.
No, it
That
really
most
doesn't.
of the kids don't even know they're in danger. Just one girl gets killed by the silly accident, really.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this whole movie is just dumb.
It's kind of a mess, yeah. Can I point out an amusing thing
You could.
that amused me at the very end? So I'm going to spoil the big plan.
They blow them up.
They blow up the sewer, basically.
Yeah.
Complicated plan, but that's the end result. And so the sewer explodes, and you imagine what that would be like under a town. Fire and flame shoots out of all the manhole covers.
Which we see, so they didn't forget this part.
Right. And there's some cars parked by some of these and blow up. And
houses
some
explode.
Houses explode because it came up through the basement and exploded. So there's fire and explosions all through this town. At the place where they did the thing and, started it, there's no fire, no explosions. It spread outward. So the very ending scene is multiple fire trucks pulling up to where there's no fire and getting out their fire hoses.
Hey, guys, see that house burning over there? That's where the fire is.
See the rest of the town that's in flames, all those cars and houses and businesses? No,
Wow.
Pull up to where there's no fire and get out your hoses.
Okay.
It amused me. Yeah, it's not a great movie.
No. Well, last week we talked about 1972's The Night Stalker, which was the most popular or most successful TV movie ever made at the time. So, of course, they had to come up with a sequel. So, if you got The Night Stalker, what are we going to do next?
The Night Strangler.
How about the same exact movie with a different kind of monster? The Night Strangler from 1973. Directed by Dan Curtis, written by Richard Matheson and Jeffrey Grant Rice, stars Darren McGavin, Joanne Flug, and Simon Oakland. Hour and 14 minutes. Trailer. No, you can watch it entirety on YouTube.
On YouTube. Nice.
Well, what's the spoiler free?
Well, like we mentioned, Kolchak is back for another case. Once again, a killer is on the loose, and only Kolchak believes there are unusual factors at play.
I'll bet the authorities are going to deny the whole thing.
They are. Everybody's a skeptic, yeah. It's another good one, and it's clear why they went on to a series after this. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Kolchak from the first film tells us that he's going to tell us the true story about what really happened, since the regular press lied and covered it all up. I think most of the episodes started out with that same thing.
Yeah, pretty
He
much.
knows the truth.
Yes, he does.
He tells us about a belly dancer walking home late at night down a dark alley in Seattle. She soon notices that she's being followed, and someone grabs her from behind. Could it be a vampire?
Not quite.
Well, it could be. We don't know.
But there are
He thinks
similarities.
maybe. Yeah. Tony Vincenzo, the editor of the local newspaper, hears Kolchak yelling about the vampire story from the previous film yet again. It's like he probably brings that up at every meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I caught a vampire once. Well, he rehires Kolchak for the newspaper, which is owned by grouchy old Mr. Crossbinder, who is a John Carradine. Tony assigns Carl to check out that dancer's murder. Well, he goes to interview the other dancers who worked with the dead girl, and Louise Harper doesn't have much time to talk and laughs off the murders. Sure enough, there's another murder, and Kolchak finds out it was another strangulation. At the coroner's inquest, Kolchak asks if the victims had lost blood, and the officials admit that, yes, there was a small loss of blood, as if a needle had been used to withdraw some.
So that's not quite a vampire, but
that's the first thing he thinks of.
They still want blood for some reason. Yeah.
The morgue attendant tells Kolchak that the way the victims' necks were broken, that the murder was inhumanly strong, and the bodies have residue of decayed human flesh on them as well.
Ew.
Tony is not pleased with that revelation.
So a ghoul this time? What is it?
Kolchak goes to the belly dancing bar to talk to Louise. We get lots of gratuitous belly dancing in this.
Mm-hmm.
The bar is right next to the Underground Tour, a place where the city got built over an older city, and most of it's still down there. Back in 1952, there was a very similar series of murders. 6 women were strangled in exactly the same way. If it's the same guy, there's going to be more murders. Well, there is another murder, and this time there's a witness. There are vampire-like marks on the victim's neck, and the killer was seen holding a big hypodermic needle. The killer is said to look like a dead man. The guy who works for the newspaper and does research comes back with more details from 1931. Seems that every 21 years, the murders start again. Yep, 1910 and 1889 as well. Each time with the same description of the ultra-strong dead man.
Well, something's going on then, isn't it?
It's a mystery.
Uh-huh.
All right, skipping down to the commentary part. Well, the first movie was very successful, so this was inevitable. This one had a vampire-like murderer, but it's not a vampire this time. Other than not being a vampire, the rest of the story is very similar to the original. You know, it's got the government cover-up and Kolchak finding out the truth, and he questions a bunch of weird characters, and people die in a strange way. And
a hidden, powerful killer who has a lair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
The eventual TV series took most of the same ideas, but at least they used a wider variety of creatures and killers. You still don't remember the robot episode?
I don't. I remember all the others, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The killer lizard.
Supposedly
and the
there's
seaweed monster.
I do remember those, yeah. And the goddess and
headless
the invisible alien. And,
yeah.
Yeah. But I don't remember a robot.
If it doesn't sound like it, we are fans.
Yes.
Well, I remember when I was little, I always wanted to visit, I saw this, and I always wanted to see Seattle, to see the underground city there, which was always said to be real. And it is real. It's a real place. They do tours there. I doubt it's as elaborate as this movie would portray it, but it's still a really cool idea.
Well, they probably...
And I heard there's an underground Detroit also.
They probably have lighting and stuff set up, like
for the
they
tours.
have for tours for caves, same kind of thing. So they probably just use those sets, those tour locations.
Well, supposedly a lot of it's flooded and you can't get to it, so there are closed-off secret areas.
Oh.
And no, I've never actually gone. I suspect it wouldn't be so well lit in reality. But if the killer had been living in that place for more than 100 years, why didn't he clean up the cobwebs and corpses?
Gives atmosphere.
Yeah, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as good as the first one. It's almost a little bit too similar, but it was still pretty cool.
There was a movie that we just watched the other day, a vampire movie, and it's set in a hacienda kind of estate.
El Vampiro, which we'll talk about next week.
And they talk about, we don't have the money to keep up on things and it's falling apart and, needs maintenance and everything. But cobwebs, for crying out loud, you've got servants. Give them a duster and, say for the next 5 minutes, everybody dust. And you'd be done.
It's not a hard job to keep ahead on the dusting.
Yeah.
Or the cobwebs.
When it's that bad, yeah. Yeah.
All right. Hey, this week let's try some short films.
Okay.
We've got one for you from 2017. We Summoned a Demon. Written and directed by Chris McEnroy. Stars Kirk Johnson, Carlos LaRota, and John Orr, and it's 6 minutes long. Where would you find it?
You'd find it on YouTube.
You would. There's a link in the show notes.
There is a link in the show notes.
Well, what happens?
Well, it's clearly the 1980s as two nerds try to do a magic spell to make them cool. Well, the one guy feels that he's not cool. Well, it doesn't work. And he thinks, the other guy says, you're less cool than you were before. Well, they go off for tacos. But then the ground opens up. It did work. The demon rises.
They didn't try to do a demon, though.
Yeah, they were just trying to be cool. Yeah. Well, that's not going to work well, is it? It's not going to go well?
Hide.
Yeah.
These guys do not hide well.
They do not hide well. They are, however, cool. You just got to be cool. We liked the retro aesthetic of it.
Yeah.
Without being too obvious about it. It's pretty low budget. Well, it looked really good for what they had. The demon's cool.
And it is a comedy, of course.
It is comedy. It's fun.
Yeah. All right, that takes us up to 2020's The Outsider. Directed by Ludwig Göhr. Written by him and also H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh.
Stars Kola Kraus, Magnus Lennartson, and Anna Golduka. Sounds kind of international, doesn't it?
And I remember reading the Lovecraft story long ago.
I did not.
About halfway through, I recognized, I know what's going to happen. I know how it ends.
It's 11 minutes long, and it's on YouTube. We open on a man who's locked inside a shed with no companionship other than a butterfly. How'd he get in there, I wonder?
Being held prisoner.
Well, he's got nothing to read except the Bible. He dreams of frolicking out in the fields, but he's stuck in the shed. When the butterfly finally gets out through a small hole, the lonely man decides it's time to escape. And like I said, this is based on an old H.P. Lovecraft story, which I wasn't familiar with going into the story, which probably helps.
And they changed it a bit to make it interesting, but
Okay.
the basic thing is there.
I didn't know what was going on until the end, although I had suspicions. It's not a great surprise. It's nicely shot, the effects are good, and the ending is really well done.
Yeah, it was. It's a good one. Worth checking out.
If you watch the YouTube thumbnail, it looks like Kevin Bacon's in this.
He's not.
Does that thing look like Kevin Bacon?
A little bit.
Yeah. 2018's Recursion. Written and directed by Caden Butera. Stars Bonnie Dicone, John Gessner, and Steve Lloyd. 10 minutes on YouTube. Well, we open on the spaceship Iris, which is planning to mine resources from an uninhabited planet. There's a storm. It's been going on for 2,000 years, so a couple of guys have to land manually to put down landing beacons for the main ship to approach. Once they get down there, they get a signal. They find that this uninhabited planet may not be completely uninhabited after all.
Uh-oh.
Did you like the movie Alien?
And if you do, you'll like this.
They took a lot of things from Aliens. It's even got like the hanging, dangling chains in one scene, I noticed.
There's a real alien vibe to it.
Oh, it's very Alien,
Yeah,
yes.
and that's not a bad thing.
No, it's well done.
It's really well done. Yeah, it's good. The ending might be a little confusing, but you got to remember the name of the film.
Yeah, I'm like,
And that might make you say,
what is that all about? Oh,
see.
Recursion. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, this is more of a problem than we thought. Yeah.
And that's all the shorts we got for you this week.
Okay.
Tune in next week where we will have 5 more movies and some shorts. And, yeah, there'll be some good movies and probably some bad movies, just like this week.
And the Oscars will be even closer.
They will.
Yeah.
But you can be prepared for the Oscars. Stop on over at HorrorMonthly.com. Click on the link to The Horror Guy's Guide to the Academy Awards of Horror. Yay!
Yay!
I'm Brian.
And I've been Kevin.
And we'll see you next week.
See ya.